I'm in the middle of a first fix of this particular job behind me where I did the battening video. So what we're doing at the moment is getting all of the electrical supplies. You can hear some of the banging going on beside me here. We're getting some of the electrical supplies in for plug sockets. We've got TVs, we've got appliances. This is a kitchen, living, dining area. It's open planned and it's all the rage. So believe it or not, we've got so many supplies. We've got all kinds of lighting. We've got down lights, wall lights, pendants. We've also got LED supplies which go all around the kitchen units. And it's incredible just how many supplies that you actually need for a modern open plan space. This video is just about how I go about setting some things out, putting socket boxes in, different ways of supporting them based on backgrounds, for example, timber frame, walls which are brick, walls which are stud, and also how I like to position downlighters to make sure that when we drill them after the plastering's done, we find the cables and the cables are easily accessible. So that's it. It's just a short video about some tips and tricks that I do when doing the first fix. So in this kitchen, we've got 3 runs of wall units. The first run is on this wall, and it's basically where the sink is and the dishwasher, and where you see these grounds, there's some wall shelves that go in. That's why we've put these grounds in, so when we fix them up, we can get them all fixed perfectly. So the batten on the wall everywhere represents the exact height of the finished work surface. We've also marked the positions of all of the units wherever they go. And the reason we do that is so when we set out for our electrical supplies, like you see these 2 boxes here, we know exactly the relationship to them for when the actual kitchen is fitted, okay? So I'm gonna fit this kitchen. I know that is gonna be exactly where I want it. So on this run here, we've got basically tall larder units, American fridge, we've got an oven stack, and then we've got a small section of work surface where you see the sockets. And again, we mark all of the positions of all the units so we can sort of get everything exactly where we want it, okay? So that's basically how we do that. And on the other side, we've got what we call wet bar, which is another run of units, an isometric run, which is about 1.8 meters long. And again, we mark the units, and that's all set out to exactly the height it needs to be. It doesn't take long, and it's effectively a rod. You often hear me talk about a rod. It's a full size drawing effectively in place. So once we've got that in, then we can start setting out for things like sockets. So let's take this socket, for example. I like to leave my socket boxes just proud of the stud work. So when we cut the plasterboard round, the plasterboard lips around the edges. So here I've just used a noggin at 45 degrees to provide the fixing that I need. And there's a specific height from the worktop to the underneath to allow for a splashback. So that's how I'd set up one in a stud, if you like. Just put a simple noggin behind, a short noggin, no flex, and fix the cable box back into it. So where I've got my timber frame, you can see that we've got a counter batten and a vapor barrier, which enables us to run our cables in a space, if you like, okay? And they'll come directly up from above, drilled through a joist in the right position, and then they'll feed the sockets. This particular socket is for a radio, which is going to sit on this shelf. So everything has to be thought about in advance. And again, we're using an insulated plasterboard here, so we'll leave these socket boxes proud enough to let the insulated plasterboard just sail past at the front. And how we do that in this case is we block that off with an 18mm MDF pattress there. It's one of those jobs where I like to use up all my offcuts. So I collect up all little bits of MDF like this, and we make all kinds of things for it. So sockets in or on brick walls, the same rule applies. I'll bring my socket box out to just behind the line of the plasterboard, and these are simply fixed directly back to the existing brick skin behind, and they're shimmed off with some plastic shims, and they're really nicely secured. There is a TV bracket going to be mounted here for a large TV, and I'll be putting a double back box behind it for power, and also a single back box for Cat6 cables to come through to feed the TV picture. So what I'll do here is I'll have a double 35mm back box and a single 35mm back box there. And I actually want to recess those into this MDF a little bit just to get them back far enough. So what I always carry with me, this goes everywhere with me. This is kind of my template for a double socket or a single socket. And I use this to mark plasterboard out. I use this to position noggins and all sorts of things. And what I'm going to do here, because I've got to relieve this MDF by about 5mm, is screw that on, use my router, route them back 5mm, and then I've still got enough grounds in this 18mm MDF to screw the box into this without touching my vapor barrier. So I'm going to do power and I'm going to do Cat 6 through this one. So what I'm going to do, I've got a centre line, which means where I want the bracket for the TV. So I just want to get these behind the bracket, okay? I'll screw up my little template here. It's isometric. I'm going to have it this way round, or if you do it the other way, you just screw it that way around. I'll put a spirit level on that. So I'm just going to pop a screw in that. I'll level it up. Pop another screw in. Get these cables temporarily out the way. Tuck them back down the back there for a minute. There we go. And then I shall stick a mask on and just take out the bit I need to get out. Got a small palm router, and this is one of my template cutting bits which you use for the hinge dig, which exactly follow the socket box. So I'll whack a battery in that and set the speed. Now I've got to be a bit careful because this actual base here is quite small. So you've just got to be a little bit careful as you're cleaning it out that you don't drop in. We'll give it a go. Get the old mask on. So I've routed them out, I've cleaned out the corners with the chisel, and what I'm going to do before I actually attach the boxes is knock out for the cables and drill a hole through, and that enables the cables to pass down in front of the vapor barrier, behind the pattress, and come out, and that gives us plenty of space to push the cables in backwards and forwards. So I mark the boxes. I'm going to pop a 25mm hole through, which should allow for the grommet as well to sit flat in the hole and give us enough space to pull the cables in and come out again. Screw that in, and that's another job done. We've also got a socket being set out below this one as well, so the ring will come down to here. So that one I'm going to put through on a batten. So I'll secure myself a timber. Let's take this bit of CLS for example, because the CLS finishes perfectly, and I'll set that in and screw the socket box on top of that one. So I'm going to fix the CLS to the laser line. The laser line is the top of all of our sockets. And I'm going to skew screw that back into the stud, which is holding the batten obviously. It's really straightforward. There we go. Plumb the box down, get it in line with the one above. Centre line of that. And that's that. So that's the socket done there. And as I say, the plasterboard will finish just in front of it, which is perfect. So a few more like that to do, and then I'm on to the lighting. So when I'm fixing the box back to the brick, it's really straightforward, just brown plugs and screws, so 60mm screws, brown plugs. In this one here, because we want it positioned in the centre of the units, it came in conjunction with our batten, so I fixed either side, cut it all out, dropped the box in and fixed it back. And again, I'm just behind, I'm 10mm in front of this for a 12mm plasterboard, and then there's the same socket over here, much more simple. This one, it was just a matter of getting it in line with our datum and fixing it back. As part of the setting out, we also make a full-size frame which represents the island unit in this case. And the idea of that is that where we've got power coming into this, which will be in the insulation layer on top of this concrete slab, we're going to run conduit from this stud wall here, which is where all of those cables are, which are going to come through the conduit and into the island, and where there's a couple of X's there, that marks the position where they can come up and not impede any of the units or appliances. So we do that. And then moving on to the ceiling, we have a hanging light which goes on this laser line that you see there, which hangs in the center of the island, okay? So what I'll do is I'll put some noggins through just to make sure we've got enough grounds there to bring a light fitting, because some of them hang, they might have a couple of legs or 3 legs to hang down, and we just need to make sure we've got enough grounds there so we're not relying on plasterboard fixings. In this ceiling here, we've also got 4 downlighters which go in the centre between the glulam beam and the roof light openings there. So we'll spring another line then. I've got some holes to go through to pass the cables through. The name of the game is drill dead on the centre line of the joist and make sure that you don't put too big a hole in. The smaller the hole, the better, and keep those in line. So I'll just simply set the laser up. And then I'm going to show you how we put our downlights up and get them in the right position at this stage. So all of my positions for my lights are done. I've just knocked out this ceiling here for the light fitting. Don't know how big it is, so I've just gone bigger and got the hole through the middle for the actual feed. And then this is something I thought I'd like to share with you. So where I've got a downlighter, this is a warm roof construction, okay? So on the top of here, on the top of the OSB, is vapor layer. On top of that is 150mm of insulation and then the roof membrane. So what I do is using a 3M, this is like a small, there you go. It's a self-adhesive pad with a small cable tie, and I'll put a tiny weeny screw up through as well, but obviously only a 16mm screw, so we don't go right through the OSB and touch the vapor control layer. And then when we hang our cables out, we just loop them onto here, hang them in the void, and when we drill our downlight, we know it's directly above and out the way. So then what we've got to do is pull it through and put it down. So I prefer doing it that way. They're all exactly where we want them. Then we'll map all this out. When we plaster, we know exactly where to drill. So this is all it is. It's a small self-adhesive fixing, if you like, and then you put your cable tie through the little hole here. There we go. But I screw it up as well, just so it doesn't sort of unstick itself. But yeah, that's a really nice way of doing it, because you can just stick those round. Now, when Colin starts pulling his cables in, he's going to know exactly where to go, because all he needs to do is look for those, and it's done. Also, it's sometimes inevitable that you're going to have to pass a cable close to the surface of a timber frame, especially in the case where we've got an insulated structure with a vapor barrier and we can't go the wrong side of it. So in that case, I'll use a nail plate. They've got 4 little spikes on, and they literally tack over the top of where there is a cable in timber work, which is vulnerable to potential screwing. I'll show you what this looks like. So it's getting late in the day, but our kitchen first fix on the electrical side is almost there. So just looking around, we've got all kinds of stuff hanging down. Everything means something. Everything's a circuit of some description. The one that you see hanging down there, for example, is the heat detector, which is needed in a kitchen. And then we've also got pendants which come through noggins. We've got downlighters which are going to be up in the ceiling until we drill through. Colin's had a good day, haven't you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, mate.
We always work together, don't we?
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure.
And it's like, you know, because I think that if a chippy like me is doing all of the grounds, putting all of the noggins in, then when Colin comes in and pulls everything through, it's there, isn't it? Like, you know, socket boxes in place. It works well, Colin, doesn't it?
It does, mate, it does, yeah. And I know exactly where I'm aiming for. Rob knows the heights. Yeah. And yeah, all good.
It is, yeah.
All
and Colin's been training me in electrics for about the last 30-something years. So our first job together, mate, was in 1989.
Correct.
In a village called Kingswood, where we did a little beauty salon, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and you came in as a sparky. I was running the job. I was only 19, but there you go. That's what happens. So yeah, we've got all of our cabling in. We've got all of our supports for kitchen units. We've got wall light supports. We've got pendant supports. You name it, we've got it. And that's it. So the only other job we've got is network cable, which we'll bring to the TV position here. So we're getting a bit dark in here now as it's the end of the day. And we're also taking one outside for a Wi-Fi extender in the garden. And that's it. So the first fix is almost there. Nice one, Colin. Thanks for all your help again, mate.
You're welcome, mate. No problem. Pleasure.
Cheers.